Hello, welcome to Graphic Policy Radio. This is your host, Elon 11, and this is a comics podcast. This is a comics movie podcast for people who love that James Gunn remembered that Superman is actually a Jewish refugee and not a Christ figure. Wait a second. I'm talking about Superman, but it's October. I realize it's been a while. I'm going to tell you why, though, and give you some context and some updates. There's been a lot going on. You might remember from this spring, I've been working with an organization called Get Free, which is a Generation Z-led civil rights organization. And we've been working on a Star Wars fandom organizing campaign called Project Fulcrum. Go back and listen to those Andor episodes from this spring if you missed them. Well, the Trump administration's FCC told ABC Disney to take late-night TV host Jimmy Kimmel off the air because he's a critic of the administration. And since a government attempt to silence critics is an emergency, and since Disney owns Star Wars, Project Fulcrum joined the fray for the I've Got Friends Everywhere campaign. Yes, another Andor reference. Nalini Stamp, who founded World Builders Club and the Real Housewives of Politics, and her crew built a toolkit of concrete ways to boycott and resist Disney ABC taking Kimmel off the air. After just a few days, nearly 1.7 million subscribers dropped Hulu and Disney Plus streaming services at a $3.5 billion price tag for Disney ABC, which soon folded and reinstated Kimmel. From there, we called on fans to amp up the pressure on the media companies Sinclair and Nexstar, which continued to block Kimmel on the many local stations they owned. So this culminated in a series of Andor-inspired fan pickets on September 26th outside the corporate headquarters, alongside members of 5051 and my old union, the Writers Guild of America. And by nightfall, Sinclair and Nexstar caved. But because it was an organized campaign, with many people, many groups working together during a moment of political crisis and public awareness, we won. It's been a model of the kind of organizing work that I know the fan community can do. It would not have worked if I had just canceled my own Disney subscription and done a few Blue Sky posts about it. In fact, even if it was just Get Free's membership doing that, it wouldn't have been enough. Organizing to win is a group effort. And let me tell you, nothing feels as good as striking a blow against the empire, but it takes an organized effort to do that. I want you to have that context because, mere days before the Disney boycott campaign, DC Comics bent to the will of Comicsgate, the organized hate mob you've heard about for years, and from between them and pressure from a right-wing Hasidic news outlet, they literally pulled Gretchen Felker-Martin's new Red Hood comic from the shelves. Go read Zach Raberoff's coverage of the story in the Comics Journal for the full story, as it is more complicated than a lot of the headlines you might have read, but ultimately what we see is a company bowing to a hate mob and leaving a trans writer out to dry. Of course, her comic book sold in record numbers, and I heard it was excellent. So I wasn't really in the mood to upload my Superman episode when that happened. But this has been an instructive moment. There was a public coordinated campaign to boycott Disney, and we had a plan for victory. There isn't a coordinated boycott of DC. I actually directed some posts on Blue Sky to James Gunn, Superman's director, asking him to make a statement of support for Gretchen, since he'd gone through a similar situation to hers years ago and got his job back at Marvel then. People echoed my post online. It did pretty well, but it didn't go fully viral, and not surprisingly, Gunn did not respond. Look, I could claim I was going to boycott DC, but it wouldn't actually be a boycott if it's just me and a few of my friends doing it. It's not a boycott, it's making a consumer choice. And it's a reasonable ethical step to take to make a consumer choice, but it's not a strategy. I think that if you say that you're going to start a boycott and not a lot of people join in, it actually makes your side look weak and is a problem. Don't buy DC Comics if you don't want to. Believe me, not suggesting that you need to. I have many friends who are not buying DC Comics as a result of their canceling Gretchen's series. But again, that's a consumer choice and not an organized boycott, at least not yet. So here I am, despite my complicated feelings, and I'm going to post my Superman episode I recorded at the end of the summer. But it's also more important than ever for us to support trans writers and artists who are under so much pressure right now and whose voices people are trying to silence. So Adding to my pull list, there is the upcoming Justice League series from Jadzia Axelrod and Nicole Maines, two trans women who are writing DC Comics. Jadzia was on my podcast a while back to talk about Galaxy, the Prettiest Star, her DC graphic novel, which I love. And she's also writing a great Hot Girl series. If you want to support Gretchen Felker Martin, who was supposed to do the Red Hood comic that DC censored, her new prose horror book, Black Flame, is being wildly acclaimed. Frankly, as many have pointed out, DC Comics needed her more than she needed them because she really is like the hip horror writer. The Wachowski sisters are going to make a movie about her earlier book, but shit's complicated. Ultimately, I did not see the point on holding off sharing my episode about Superman with you. So here it is. I hope you can enjoy it despite the delay, and know that there is more to come soon with my Peacemaker coverage. But I'm happy to keep having this conversation with you and appreciate your thoughts. Oh, right. So where were we? I'm actually bringing you what I'll call a bit of a Superman movie special, because rather than me having guests, I'm now sharing with you an interview segment where I was the guest on someone else's show. Beyond the Pale is a wonderful radio show on WBAI New York City, hosted by two of my friends, Rafael Shimoff and Shoshana Brown. It is a show known for its bold, fun exploration of news and culture from a Jewish leftist perspective. And I was on their show to talk about Superman. And I was really happy with our conversation. We talked a lot about the movie's significance with what it has to say about the current genocide in Gaza. And I just thought to myself that rather than reinventing the wheel and doing a whole fresh episode over here, it made sense for me to go and share with you the recording of the episode I did with them. So I've trimmed it a bit so that it's just the material of myself and the host talking about Superman. But I want to thank them for giving me a platform, and also encourage folks to check out Beyond the Pale on WBAI. And you can also get it as a podcast on your podcast app. So with that, from here on out, you'll be transported from Earth 1 to Earth 2, where you will hear me being interviewed by the folks from Beyond the Pale Radio.
You are now listening to
Beyond the Pale, radio's home for the Jewish left, with your hosts,
Rafael Shimoff and Shoshana Brown.
The Pale, for those who don't know, was the only area in Russia where Jews were allowed to live. Beyond the Pale thus came to signify transgression, danger, and unconventional behavior. This program, Beyond the Pale, will, we hope, explore in unconventional ways the experience, identity, culture, and politics of contemporary Jews from the diaspora. I'm your co-host, Shoshana Brown.
And I'm your co-host, Rafael Shimonov. Good morning, everyone.
An amazing guest, Ilana Levin, a pop culture critic with a long history in superhero comics and comics-inspired media. They host Graphic Policy Radio, a podcast at the intersection of general media and movement for social change.
Their writing includes How Jack Kirby and DC Comics Predicted Trump with a bloviating demagogue in 1971, published by the Daily Beast. Ilana is currently working on Project Fulcrum, Get Free's fan activist campaign. Oh, Get Free, I love them. Fan activist campaign organizing Star Wars, Andor fans. Oh, everyone has to see that. Against the threat of the Empire and the Galaxy, not so far away at all. Ilana works in digital organizing. That's where we know them. And communications for labor unions and community-based organizations. Yeah, Ilana, you're out here, whenever I see you, you're out here training everybody on all the digital things. Like we go to conferences, you're there. You have your private things, you're there. Labor, like there's everyone, young people. I see like older, like union guys with like stained t-shirts sitting in your work, sitting in your thing, trying to be like, oh, this is how you make an effective TikTok. So yeah, this is my first foray into Ilana many years ago.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we met because I was offering you unsolicited Twitter advice on the JFridge Twitter account. And then eventually they said, do you want to volunteer with us? And I'm like, yeah, I do.
Right.
God bless, because that could have gone another way too. So
Sometimes in this movement, like I don't raise my hand because I know it's more work for me. But
Mhm.
I don't have any comments sometimes when I'm feeling tired because I will be organized into more work.
Oh yeah.
I feel you.
We're going to talk a bit about the new Superman movie. That's the topic of our show today, Supermensch. Thank you for the title, Raf.
Lana's actually the first person who ever told me about like the Jewish history of almost all comic book things. So yeah, please. Can we set the table though? I think it's become a news piece in particular for two reasons. One is it seems to be very parallel to Israel-Palestine and capitalism and all those things, but also the right wing and the very pro-Israel government folks out there really are coping with its success. So maybe you could just give us a little background for people coming into this for new, and also maybe do the warning about.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll say that just before we get to what will be a spoiler-laden conversation, I do want to sort of tell folks, as much as I am someone who has a superheroes and comics podcast, I'm not someone who will just jump up and down and see every single superhero movie that comes out because I think that movies should be good, right? There's only so much time in our lives to have recreation.
Wow.
And so if you feel like you're burned out on MCU or you haven't liked Superman movies in the past.
You meaning Marvel?
Yeah. Yes. If you're like, I don't need to see any more of the Marvel movies, or you haven't liked prior Superman movies, do not let that stop you from watching this one. If there's an ounce of you that is interested in superhero stuff at all, or who is curious about a movie that really has the right wingers just so upset.
Superman is bad, and Lex Luthor is right, and we should restrict his power, and we should jail him.
You should go watch Superman. It's very good. It's doing something fresh and new that we haven't seen on screen in a long time. It's unabashedly political, and really espouses a lot of progressive and leftist politics. And there are many things that James Gunn has gotten away with that are quite surprising and impressive.
This shit, alien. That is where you've always been wrong about me, Lex. I'm as human as anyone. I love, I get scared. I wake up every morning and despite not knowing what to do, I put one foot in front of the other and I try to make the best choices I can. I screw up all the time. But that is being human. And that's my greatest strength. And someday, I hope, for the sake of the world, you understand that it's yours too.
So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's now on streaming, so you don't have to go to a theater to see it at this point. But I really enjoyed it and was very impressed at what we could get out there in the film. And the way it talks very directly to so much of what's happening in the news on multiple levels.
That's kind of what I want to go to first, because as I was watching it and thinking about this and thinking about this show, I personally was not really excited to see the movie, mostly because I'm not a Superman fan. I am definitely more of X-Men. I'm definitely more in the other universe. So, like I'm not deep into the comic world, but I've taken my side on that debate. And I kind of was like, why did I keep remaking this Superman movie? And I feel like, when I started to look into it, I realized like there are different ways to kind of portray the story of Superman. And one of the things that I think people who make, comic book films are thinking about is like, actually, what is the superhero that is needed, for this political moment, like the moment that we're in. And so different ways of portraying Superman, like, for example, in times that were more hopeful, like the Obama years, we were looking at a Superman that was like Man of Steel, like a more of a dark character, for example. But this, there's like in different political moments, I think that they create a superhero movie that kind of is what they think the people need. And I wonder if you can speak a little bit to that. Like, is that true? Is there like a thought process behind that? And then overall, what is this movie saying in terms of even the feel of it? Even his costume was very kind of comical in a way.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like a costume that I feel was very scary. It was very sort of like funny. Like
Mhm. I mean, yeah, if you're ashamed of the comic book origins of superhero characters, then you probably should make a superhero movie. And we've had a lot of superhero movies that seemed embarrassed of their source material, which is unfortunate given what you're working with, guys. But I think one of the problems we've seen is that a lot of people are unable to recognize and really embrace the Jewish origins of the character. And we see that so clearly. We see the Jewish origins of the character so clearly in the new movie. So, like, if you're out there to make a Christ allegory, which is not something that is in any of the early Superman material and also is fully unnecessary, there's
Could've
just
been
plenty
more
of Christ
raw.
figures. There's just plenty of Christ figures out there, guys. Like, have one of your own, whatever. Then, yeah, you're going to go in a different direction. But like, Superman is Moses. Superman isn't Jesus. And he was like designed as a Moses figure. If you look at the early, so Superman was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster back in 1938. Both are Jewish creators. So they're in America. It's like right in the lead up, to World War II. And they are working in an industry which is one of the few places in the media at the time where Jewish working class and lower class people could get jobs. And they are telling a story that is clearly based on Moses, because like, if you literally look at the rocket ship, that little infant Superman, the boy who would become Superman, comes to the planet Earth in, it's a cradle like Moses. His parents are like, they're like, we have to send our son away because our planet is doomed. Our time is ending. Hopefully we'll find some kind people on Earth who will raise them. They do. And it's one where he's then sent, from his rural home to go and fight for freedom and justice. And he struggles with issues of assimilation and what does he mean here? And like, that is sort of the origins of this character. And so Superman doesn't like die for our sins. That's there. The death of Superman happens in the early 90s. That's like not a core text here. So I think it makes sense that this story isn't about Superman like dying for our sins. It's about Superman stepping up in leadership and inspiring others to act bravely as well. And so much of the story is about Superman making the brave choice, making difficult choices, and including like questioning the mythology that he's been sold his whole life, and inspiring other people to be brave with him.
That was the most interesting part of the film for me. Was, I don't know, like how I know James Gunn, like I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It's one of my favorite like fun movies. Style, I really, really like his style. So I was like, wow, he's going to do Superman. I can't wait to see. And you saw a lot of those kind of fun his element. One thing I thought, like I was surprised by seeing, it seemed like, I always think like when you rewrite or you extend the canon of like a story that there's like a fandom around that's very protective around those things, like it's a big deal, right? And I feel like in this movie, they extended like Superman. Like I grew up watching the classic Superman, not the movie. And that was, it was like the parents were seen as these positive role models who were sending Superman to Earth to do good and all those things. And in this film extends that. They sent him to colonize Earth and to maybe enslave it, right? Am I wrong?
And I mean, to definitely to colonize Earth, but like with the air of it being like, but this will be good for everyone, very paternalistic, which is so much in line with the whole like, well, we planted trees, so it's totally fine that like, made the desert.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like, so
it parallels my journey of like my parents telling me about Israel at that age, and now me seeing the real story of like, oh, this is a colonization project.
I mean, but I also think it's important, right? And that their world was ending. Like, this isn't just like we are evil and are doing evil things. It's like this is brought on by a calamity and an end of our lives. However, we still have this mindset that what we have is better and therefore should be imparted to everyone, which I appreciate that it kept that complexity, because that is one of the distinctions that's like not the same as the standard.
And as a kid too, it always held this kind of complexity for me, because I remember, I don't know, you might correct me because I don't remember the original film, But I do remember we're former Soviets, me and, my parents, we are highest refugees or whatever. And to us, when we saw people like Robin Williams, like he had this complexity about like showing the humanity of people in the Soviet Union, or and Superman did as well. Like Superman, like other films, didn't just go to the Soviet Union and see Russians and be like bad.
Right.
He saw the complexity in that. There's comics around that, I think. Like Red Sun or something, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, well, that was like the story of what if Superman was born in Russia? Like, what would that have looked like? And it's
that was very
interesting.
progressive at the moment to humanize.
Oh yeah,
Russians at that moment when they were like persona non grata, so culturally.
Like, superhero stories have had heroes that are of Russian origin since long before a lot of other media was doing it, and it usually was framed as like they become defectors to the U.S. But the underlying feeling was that surely people, regardless of where they were born, have the potential to be heroes and to do good things. So rather than writing people off based on where they were born, like let's be excited when they, and this is the big thing, when they take on the sort of positive aspects as we evaluate them to be as Americans and do the right thing. So like you have lots of plenty of superheroes who are of Russian origin, but they all kind of came out of being like, well, we have to escape Soviet Russia to come to America to be heroes here. But that's again, like this is this very Jewish idea, right? Because that's us,
That's where we were saved.
I'm curious because this movie in particular is not actually an origin story.
Right.
The movie
Yes, thank
starts
God,
in the
right?
middle. Unlike a lot of other past sort of like trilogies or reinventions, this movie starts sort of in the middle of his life. And in the middle of a battle where he's like actually totally defeated. And I felt like that was such to me, that screamed how we are thinking about, and I'm just gonna jump right into like how we are thinking about Palestine and Israel and sort of like, I don't know, in my mind, there are so many points at which I felt like the character of Superman sort of like flipped a little bit back and forth between who I think he was portraying to be. So for example, when he started, I felt like when the movie started and Superman was defeated, I was like, oh, is Superman Israel right now? Like, are we starting the story at October 7th?
Oh,
like,
wow.
in the middle of this defeat, like, oh, Superman, our hero, is defeated, then what happens? There are other points in the story that we'll get to in the conversation where it actually like flips and I see a different version of what I think Superman was supposed to be portrayed. But I think that opening scene to me really spoke to this way in which I think so many people, including Zionists and also people who are not Zionist or et cetera, who or don't have a label, but who are just by being part of the milieu and the slop of our current political condition, starting the story of Palestine at October 7th, starting the story of Hamas and Israel at October 7th gives you this certain portrayal.
Wow. That's interesting. I mean, I think at the moment of the start of the story, I imagine that a lot of audiences are viewing Superman as America because they've been told that that's what it means and that's who he is. I mean, we later learned that he got his ass kicked because he was stepping up for a country sponsored by America, given American weapons, like that country was just going in to kill people and conquer another country, claiming it was for their own good. So you have
Superman is fighting the client state.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. He's exactly. And which is not, I think, what people might have assumed was going to be happening or who he would be with.
Right.
Interestingly, the fictional client state dates back to superhero, like Superman comics, like pretty early.
Oh.
It was sort of like kind of Yugoslavia stand-in. You know, if anything, my only like kind of political flag I had in the movie was I was kind of worried that the man portraying the dictator of that U.S. client state kind of felt like a bad Jewish stereotype to me. But I also feel like I don't think that's necessarily what he was trying to be per se. I don't know.
Definitely not, but definitely giving like Albert Einstein hair.
Yeah, I was like, did he need that haircut? But otherwise, you know.
He was the only, everyone was very Disney Western featured, and then the one villain representing what could be Israel was like very ethnically coded, with exaggerated things, and I was just like, oh, okay. But
And
then,
like,
what's her name? The woman who threw him from the sky.
Shara Hall.
Yeah, she in her
Girl.
mask. Yeah, in her mask, she looks like Simone Zimmerman. So when she threw, she threw Netanyahu,
Raf and I are about to start getting so many text messages from Simone.
no, I actually sent it to Simone. She was very proud that I thought that.
Oh, good. I mean, yeah, everybody loves Hawk Girl. Hawk Girl's a great character. Really interesting to see her brought in here. Happy they had like a diverse supporting cast.
But I can't believe there's a scene of Simone Zimmerman throwing Netanyahu off. God.
And showing you like Superman could have done that and he didn't. He made a different choice. And like the superheroes are going to have different orientations to this, you know?
So we have to do a sound check. Station ID.
Station ID. Go for it.
You are listening to Beyond the Pale, radio's home for the Jewish left, here on WBAI 99.5 FM and streaming on WBAI.org and all of your podcasting platforms. We're in the middle of a discussion with our amazing guest today, Ilana Levin. They are the host of Graphic Policy Radio podcast, and we're talking about Superman. Why are so many right-wingers and like pro-Israel government kind of characters out there so coping so hard with the success of the film? They like to tell us, for example, that when you go woke, you go broke. And this showed the opposite.
I want to talk about this moment in the show, right? Because I think there's such an interesting parallel happening with the show because in the movie, because the entire time they sort of portray that he finds it soothing to watch this holographic video of his parents, leaving him half of a message. Like, we sent you there this is our end, and we sent you there. And what he makes of that is, we sent you there to serve the people of planet Earth and to be a servant and to be a helper and to be a good person. He makes it out that he is sent there to be a good human being.
Superman
and then
without a world without a Superman.
Yes.
And then somewhere half in the middle, right? Lex Luthor, who I'd love to hear, Ilana, your take on who Lex Luthor is sort of portraying themselves to be in this movie. But Lex Luthor is the one that actually reveals the full message, whereas Superman thinks that the second half of the message was just lost in transit and that it's unrecoverable. Lex Luthor, in fact, technologically, with his technological advances, was able to recover the rest of the message, denoting that he was there to colonize and, take over, and that the people of the earth will serve him, and he's supposed to be the ruler, etc.
Yeah, it's such an interesting decision, which was something that was new from the movie. I think is a really powerful choice right now. Like Superman had written in the values that he got from his adoptive parents, values of serving and humility, and it assumed that clearly his biological parents must have been adhering to that same belief when they sent it to him. And it's easy to understand.
And his adoptive parents are like all American, like these like white Kansas farmers, cow farmers.
Much. Yeah, very, very much. And like, it's understandable why he assumed the message from his bio parents was like something that he was going to be ideologically aligned with. But it turns out that they were sending, like, yes, we're sending you to Earth because like literally our planet's exploding. But when you're there, you should take over. Like, this is your birthright. You will be like the good, strong leader. And he's like, he's traumatized. And it's so parallels the journey that so many Jewish Americans have gone through when they were, you're sold this idea of, we made the desert bloom, we went to Israel and we saved this barren land, as you said, the land without people. Well, it seems like there were people there after all. And this realization that he has that their intent was not benevolent, you know, he could have said to himself, well, I'm going to finish their mission since they were dying anyway. Surely they knew what was right. You know, my birth parents, they have my destiny and that's what I should do. And he rejects that because he's like, actually, my version of what my mission is, rooted in my values, is the correct one. And I think it's giving people the license to say, okay, so you were raised in Zionism that believed that you should take over and conquer this other country, these other people and rule over them, but you can choose something else. And it doesn't make you not Jewish. It doesn't make you not Kryptonian. It just is a different way to analyze what your goal is, what your aim is. And it gives you the power to make that choice yourself, which is something so many people are making a choice about right now themselves. It also has empathy. Like, you're not an asshole for believing that this other thing was true. Like, you were like literally in a brainwashed kind of like a tube. You were operating from limited information. You were a child. And now as an adult, right? Like, you can make a different, more informed decision. And I thought that was a good way to handle it. It was also interesting to me, like, speaking of the casting, like the actors who were playing his parents, like, they're like the hot Jews, right? It's just like totally in line with the sort of like Israeli ideology of like, yeah, but we're the hot Jews, not like those Eastern European who are, you know, I mean, not like Eastern European people.
The anti-Semitic thing about Jews to the slaughter.
Yeah, yep. And I was just like, good casting there. I mean, the actors aren't Jewish, but like, it's like, so, and the actor this is important. The actor who plays Superman is Jewish. And this is the first time we've seen that in a live action role. And I, you know, when he's being Clark Kent, his hair is in his like curled natural texture. When he's being Superman, it's like a little bit more straightened and assimilation-y. Not that Jews don't have straight hair. Jews look like everybody under the sun, but you get what I'm talking about.
And Lois being an honorary Jew as well.
Interesting. I mean, it was one of the smart things they did by having the movie begin without giving you a full origin is like letting it, we don't have to see everything. If you're going to tell something new, which this movie does, then we don't have time to cover every bit of the origin story, which like people know. If you don't know the origin story of Superman by now, it's because you've chosen to, and that's fine. The writers know what the origin is.
But yeah, yeah.
But I think
it's a lot of freedom about like, but I just want to add like, there's other versions of this, like as an immigrant, or like I can imagine as Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim Americans, the story of America, of this like parental savior of refugees, of us that they will draw the line on something like this, and watching them not do it. That this movie, from that lens, is also so rich. And in my conversations with a Muslim friend of mine, like it was really moving as like a mirror to his own. Like for us, it's very easy to just view this just through the Jewish lens.
Right.
But this is so portable through so many different experiences.
And like the people who are in the country that is being conquered by the U.S. client state, they are very Muslim coded. And when they are calling on and they're making the best they can to stand up with like sticks and stones to fight against these advanced weapons. And like they call for Superman to save them. They like these children like putting up a flag being like, they're claiming his symbol as their own as well. Right. I also love that like the character who's like the touchstone for Superman among sort of like just the regular people of Metropolis is a halal cart guy.
Yeah.
Like Superman like puts his life on the line for the halal cart guy because that guy is like the heart of his city and he loves him. And I'm like one of the
I
most
didn't catch that. Wow.
Because basically like the guy who's like, Superman, don't give yourself up. We love you. He like, thank you for saving me. And like when they were like trying to kill me at my halal cart, like with like aliens like showed up at my halal cart. Thank you for saving me. And like, yes, when Lex Luthor is trying to torture Superman, he's torturing his halal cart guy. It's just this like
and then kills the halal cart guy. But I think there's like there's this thing that I want to go back to around sort of like this is not an origin story, but the piece of it that is this holographic message from his biological parents that sort of is this thing that they consistently say over and over is like, oh, that's what soothes him. That's what helps him heal. It's the like when he's resting, it's what he wants to listen to. And so throughout the whole movie, he keeps going back to this thing. And in a way, the way that you describe it is so in alignment with how I can imagine this is a propaganda story. It's the story that soothes us. It's the story that has everything make sense for us. Whether true or not, whether we understand the full meaning of what that story is, or even where that story comes from. It's the thing that soothes us. But then in the end, when he does realize, right, he has this realization, which to me just very much feels like the turning point in my political awakening, when I began to understand what really Israel is and what really Israel is doing, right? I started to be like, oh, all these things that I found soothing are now being disrupted and they're ruptured. And what does he do? He at the end of the movie, they still say like, oh, let's play the message from his parents that he finds watching his parents soothing. And you think that they're going to play the holographic message, but actually what they play are his American parents. They play all these films and clips of memories of him with his adopted family, right? With his Kansas adopted parents. And to me, I just want to draw the parallel of so much of what the progressive Jewish community is doing right now by like rewriting the stories that bring us soothing care and help us to find home and help us to find healing. We're actually like saying like, oh, we can find healing and soothingness in the idea of parents that doesn't have to be this other thing that is horrible and violent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can recreate home. We can recreate family in ways that are meaningful for us and that are not violent.
Yeah.
There is,
and he really builds a sorry.
Oh, no, please.
And he really builds a family with new people throughout the movie. You know, he's like, he brings in Metamorpho, he brings in this growing relationship with all of his coworkers, with the Justice Gang, like, which is kind of like a proto Justice League in the movie, like helping them break away from the leadership of the rich guy who's been funding them. He really is a builder. He's a community builder in so many ways in the story.
Also, did you find it odd that Lex Luthor was so self-aware about his jealousy and how he's driven by jealousy? To me, I was just like, this is like the millennial villain that does go to therapy. And also like, wait, therapy didn't fix him. It just made him a better villain.
That's so true. I mean, shout out to the way this Lex Luthor is a tech billionaire who is not a scientist in himself. He employs other people to do science for him.
Wow.
His whole thing is manipulating people, bullying, and being an abusive employer. And it's sort of like, I was wondering if they were going to make him be like too Elon Musk-like, because the problem is this actor is very charismatic and handsome. And the good news is no, you cannot read this guy as literally just being Elon Musk, because that would have totally been masturbatory for Elon Musk to see himself as Lex Luthor, because Lex Luthor is so aspirational.
Yeah. So you just basically implied Elon Musk is very ugly. Just right here, we're breaking news. Breaking news.
I got a value judge. He's not charismatic in the way Lex Luthor is.
Yeah,
right?
In his heart.
Yeah.
And so,
but he is still giving the sentiment of many of the sort of like Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Sam Altman sort of like white rich guy who actually like, instead of relying on heart, on courage, on physical aptitude, it's all about sort of like, what kind of huge technological advances can I make to destroy the world?
Yes. And he explicitly says he doesn't care what happens to Metropolis so long as he kills Superman, which is like, that is like the Lex Luthor ethos. Yeah. And
that is the Elon Musk taking a chainsaw to the government.
Yeah, that is also like Grimes, his girlfriend. What's his name? What's her name? Lex Luthor's girlfriend is what Grimes could have and should have been.
Absolutely.
You could have done that. You could have done that.
She took lots of selfies and exposed all of the Lex Luthor secrets through her selfies.
And nobody took her seriously because of the way she talks, the way she dresses, who she is. And the fact that his being an abusive employer is what brings him down, by having his girlfriend turn on him and expose him, and having some of his other people who were working with him or for him kind of realizing like he's not there to protect you, is really important to show.
And the young tech bros lined up doing all of the virtual controlling of like weapons.
Yeah,
very much felt like the guys that Elon brought onto Doja and stuff.
Oh, totally. And the fact that his secret weapon also is literally a clone of Superman, who he controls and dictates to, and basically treats this as a body that he owns. I mean, the clone Ultraman in this is abused the entire time. He's treated as subhuman. He doesn't get to speak. So all of Luther's work is done by others.
One thing that wasn't believable was how little Superman cared about this clone's life. Maybe he gave him a chance in the beginning, but like at the end, it was like, all right, you're gonna die.
I have to throw you into space, but like being thrown into space, like it's a superhero story. He's gonna probably fall back to Earth, and there'll be some sort of process he'll go through.
We can't end the show today without addressing one of the most blatant pieces of political insertion into this movie, which is the argument that Clark Kent has with Lois Lane in the apartment very early in the movie. About half an hour into the movie, they have a huge argument where she wants to interview him as Superman about how he intervened in Boravia's intervention into Jarhan Pool. And he screams, like, he's like, people were going to die. I stopped the war. And then she says something about, but the president of Boravia said da-da-da. And he's like, you believe Boravia? Like, are you kidding me? You're going to believe that? And she's like, yeah, I think you're right, but I don't know you're right. And so there's just such a crystallizing moment of dialogue and just like what people are saying, and the conversation that I feel like, we have with so many people of like, you actually believe this thing that that Trump is saying or that Netanyahu is saying? Like, you actually believe that?
I also think that she's just operating as a journalist in that moment and saying like, look, I think you're probably right, but I have to hold this to a higher level of objectivity to determine, like, you as an individual, like, who's not elected by the public, who nobody voted for, like, do you have a right to decide what our foreign policy should be unilaterally, even if I can tell that you're well-intentioned and like are trying to help and save people? And it's a continuing question in superhero media, if you have unlimited power, because sometimes and often we see in superhero stories, superheroes who are well-intentioned operating off of imperfect information and making catastrophic choices as a result. This isn't one of those cases, but it is important for people to be aware that can happen. And so I like that one of the roles that Lois Lane plays is she's not a yes woman. She is questioning, even when she thinks he's probably right. She has to voice that, we have imperfect knowledge. You're acting unilaterally. Like, how do you know that you're right to intervene in this moment? And ultimately, he's saying, like, it's not about the broader geopolitics of who's right and who's wrong. People were going to die. So he's not ultimately offering, and Superman isn't like, I am anti-colonial and I believe that XYZ is the proper ideology. He's simply like, well, people were going to die and I stopped that. Like, the question of how should this be governed, ruled, etc., after the fact is not the one that he's seeking to answer.
There is this current conversation happening in our movements of like, which actually is like conjoins like blue MAGA kind of people, like Democrats who have like the same kind of mirror stuff, like behavior of like a Trump, but also like on the very left, like the argument about like what we should do with power when we have it. Like right now, should we be redistricting, even though we know it's unethical, in order to build power? In response to the Republicans redistricting in order to steal an election? Like, how do we use raw power and where do we decide on the ethics of it? It's just like really potent, I think, to me. But overall, like for people wondering why hopefully if you didn't see it, you didn't listen to this whole thing, or maybe
maybe you did and you don't care about spoilers.
Yeah.
But for people wondering why people are interested in this, we feel helpless right now. And the authors of Superman and a lot of comic books felt helpless after the Holocaust and after other things, and had to write and imagine what it would feel like to have agency and power.
Yes.
This is like, it's a nice little vacation in my brain to be like, wow, if we just had this power. Ilana, why do you think this is resonating, this film, with everyone basically right now.
That very much. And I do also just want to mention one of the themes is, again, like how Superman is an immigrant in this story. He's a refugee and he's like representing like the refugee experience. And I think that superhero stories are a uniquely American popular culture phenomenon that are like, you know, as you said, rooted in Jewish experience. And like, so I think it's great that like we're able to connect to this part of our history and lineage rather than just looking at towards Israel, a foreign country where you and I do not live, as like being the epitome of Jewish culture. Like Jewish culture is like where we are and what we make of it. So yeah, Graphic Policy Radio is my podcast, and
how can they find you? The podcast is called Graphic Policy
Radio. Yes, just had a new episode go up about Murderbot,
and on social media.
Levin, which is my last name, Levin on Blue Sky. Come hang out with me over there.
Thanks so much for being here with us, Alana. We've really enjoyed our time with you. Again, I just want to encourage our listeners to go to WBAI.org and support WBAI, support public radio for keeping us on the air.
Thanks for sticking with us. I am going to be having more episodes coming up, including definitely some coverage of HBO's Peacemaker series. You can keep up with me on Blue Sky, where I'm at. My handle is LEVIN. And as we like to say, keep it geeky.